Hi, I'm Jess, CEO and founder of Rewritten.
I'm Teresa Sweeney, a senior executive in finance and author, and this is Rewritten, real talk for working moms who want it all.
This is a podcast hosted by two successful working moms and friends who define success on their own terms and in very different ways.
But if there's one thing we both agree on, it's this: you can't have it all, but you can have everything you want. The rules just have to be rewritten. And welcome back to episode 2 of Rewritten. Jess and I are super excited again that you're here. And we're excited to continue the conversation that we had in our first episode, where we really talked about our origin story, how we got here, how Jess and I met. And now really taking that into a consideration on success, actually, and how we actually go through the process of defining success on our own terms and thinking about what winning actually means for us as individuals.
Yeah, I think it's a heavy question and a big question. What is success? And I think the answer to that has certainly changed over the years from when we first met to where we are almost 20 years later. How has that journey changed for you?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. I mean, for me in college, I think I thought about success in a way a lot of people did. And I would articulate that I had really wanted to always have a big career. I assumed that I would have a demanding job. I was excited about going into private equity and maybe being a partner at a private equity firm or maybe being a CEO of a company over time. And for me, family was something that always was incorporated in that vision for myself. I wanted to have a family and wanted to get married. And I just assumed that I'd kind of figure out a way to make it work. And
Did you
I
see a
had this.
lot of examples, when you were of college age of women at these sort of high-powered jobs who had families? I mean, because you came from a household of 2 working parents, right?
I did. Although my parents are both doctors, my mom had stepped out when she had my younger sister. There are 3 of us. I have an older brother and a younger sister. And she basically stopped working for most of my childhood. When I got my driver's license and my sister was 2 years away from getting hers, my mom's really started studying to go back into practice, and we would come home from school and she would have a literal mountain of textbooks on the coffee table studying to go back and retake the exams to practice again, which honestly was very inspiring to me too, of just how much she put her mind towards that and was able to actually achieve it. But I hadn't really seen a truly like kind of 2 working parents. Like we had my mom was around for everything, and she got a little bit of help shuttling us around to soccer practice or saxophone practice or whatever we were doing, but she was definitely primary caregiver. What about for you?
Yeah. So I had my dad's a lawyer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She ran the household. She ran a very tight ship, but she was really responsible for the household and all the kids. And she did a great job with that. But she was a registered nurse before that, but she had stepped aside, I can believe after I was born, after a couple of years after I was born. Because I do have some early memories of being sort of babysat while my mom maybe was at work or somewhere else just like during the early years. But for majority of our childhood, yeah, my mom was stay at home. And I knew that I didn't want to stay at home with kids, but I didn't quite know what it then looked like to have 2 working parents. Like who takes care of the kids? I hadn't quite figured out that part of the equation because I'm not quite sure that I saw it done other than folks who had nannies where the nanny was, yeah, I guess raising the kid during the day while you're at work.
Yeah, totally. And to your earlier question, like I had these 2 really pivotal moments that shaped how I looked at like my own aspirations, if you will. One was during one of my internships. Um, all of the interns got to go to sort of a fireside chat with one of the very senior members of this particular bank. It was actually a man speaking. And at the end, he was asked a question about what he regretted most. And I will never forget what he said. I mean, the look that came over his face was just it was honestly heartbreaking. And he said, he's like, "Look, nobody gets to where I am and wishes that they had spent more time working." And he talked about all of the birthdays and soccer tournaments and piano concerts and everything that he'd missed throughout the course of his children's childhood, and how now he was trying to find a better balance, but it was kind of too late. Like his kids were actually
Yeah,
grown
that's
adults and he had quite
sad.
literally missed their childhood. And I remember sitting there, I mean, being horrified, just imagining how I would feel standing in his shoes, saying that to a group of people that, like, I had completely sacrificed everything for my family to have. It didn't even matter what career aspiration you attained. Like, for me, there was nothing that was worth that.
And I think as a woman, I don't think we get as much grace as that man probably get for missing those things. So I think he feels the guilt probably now in retrospect, but I don't think anyone, maybe other than his wife, was guilting him at that time. Whereas I think for we as women, there's that double standard that we sort of face, which is okay, we can go to work, we can have the big high power career, but when we do miss the thing, it hits us way harder because society doesn't expect that of us. And I think that can be
Totally.
really challenging as well.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I mean, the a year, probably it was 1 year later, a different internship, randomly got invited to one of the senior women's kids' birthday party because I was friendly with her assistant, and we went to this party. It was probably like 3:30 on a Friday, and to be totally fair, it was, like, in the middle of the workday, uh, Friday, but still, and there were no parents there whatsoever. It was, like,
Mm,
all nannies,
mhm.
and it was this sort of interesting moment, especially of New York City culture around families of, like, of how many people really rely on that. And obviously you have to if you want to have any type of career, or even like in some ways like just your own set of priorities that you're chasing, no matter what, for your kids.
Yeah, and so how did you start to form this concept then of what success would look like when you have this idea of, okay, I want to be successful in my career, but we also kind of want to be home and have a family, but I haven't quite seen those two come together in a way that makes sense. Because I think for me
Yeah.
it was easy where the family just was never in the picture for me. I never imagined that. I just only thought about my career for most of it because I, I couldn't piece together those other things. So I just assumed I won't have kids. And that's
Yeah.
fine too.
Well, and that was something I wanted to bring up, especially for you, because I know that you
Yes.
thought a lot about that decision of like whether you wanted kids at all. So we'll put a pin in it for a second. But in terms of your question, for me, what changed was having that in my head. I really started to look for more examples of people that I did actually want to emulate. And that was where I started to see, on both sides, women and men, but especially the women who managed to have multiple kids, sometimes not even just two, but three or four, which is to me
God
still
bless.
completely mind blowing. But I just
I
don't
wanna see that
understand.
daycare tuition bill.
My God. But they had a very clear and strong sense of, like, they showed up at work clearly doing awesome. These were people who had a ton of respect within the organizations I was a part of, and, like, who really looked like they had it figured out, like, they looked genuinely happy, and I
Not
saw
haggard and,
them.
like, like they
Yeah.
regretted those choices.
Bags under your eyes. Yeah, and, like,
Yeah,
they really looked like they were having fun, that they had this, like, joy and zest for life, and were able to kind of make all the things work, and that was when I started to pay a ton of attention. It's like, and ask a lot of questions around, "What is it that you do? How do you do that?" And the really common themes that came up and over and over again were, 1, extreme clarity on what actually mattered to them with no apologies. Like, it was this lens of, like, they know what they needed to do to feel like the best version of themselves, protect what was important, and just didn't ask for permission on it. It was just, they just
which goes
did
back
what
to what you said in our last episode about that advice you got, which is, like, don't ask for permission, just do what you think
do.
is right, and let people question it if they need to, and that's
Yeah.
it's ballsy, but I think you're right. There's a certain element of if you know what's important to you, and as long as you're not letting the ball completely drop at work, people don't have a reason to question it. And part of it is culture too, because now that I think back, when I was at Starwood, that was actually a very family-friendly environment that I hadn't quite seen before, where people were very much leaving the office and packing up at 5 o'clock with no shame. And 5 o'clock was early to me, coming from banking and consulting before that. But people were like leaving at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get home. I gotta go pick up the kids and have dinner with my family." And that seemed to be important set of values for a lot of even the very senior executive at Starwood was like, "Okay, I'm going home to have dinner with my family." And then they might check that in later in the evening, but there seemed to be this boundary and barrier, and nobody questioned it.
Totally. And that, I think it's very interesting because I do think that the manager and the team culture around you, of course, has a huge impact
Yeah,
on
sets
the
the
sort of
tone.
totally, totally sets the tone on normal standards of behavior within the team and what people feel like is okay. And I definitely consider myself fortunate to have had bosses who have been extremely supportive and very understanding. And in a lot of ways, like I feel like I've gotten, especially in some of my recent roles, gotten to set the tone for what it looks like to be a working parent on the team. And that's been really helpful too. But sometimes I hear from especially from women that like that's not the culture on my specific team, or I don't feel like I can do that. And then I think it's just a question of like there is this element of, but you don't have to stay there. It's like then it's a question of, is this a place where you feel like you can be the type of professional you want to be, that you can live the life that you want to live in that environment? And that may just be a question to be asking yourself along the way too.
Oh, 100%. And that's something I have to work a lot with my clients on is figuring out where is the pain coming from specifically? Because it's very easy to say, okay, this isn't working. Let me go find the next place. And then you find yourself in the same situation because we weren't solving for the right thing. And I think it goes back to what you're talking about is we have to be really clear on what it is that we need and what is we want and what is the thing that's precious. And that's been a big theme of what we talk about a lot is we can't have everything. Right. And but you can have some of the things that are important. And when you're clear on that, then you can try and look for them. It's still a privilege to be able to walk away from a job and say, like, I'm going to go find something else. And it's harder in practice than it is in saying. But I think it does start with giving yourself permission and acknowledging, okay, I'm saying my family is my priority and it's important to me. Is this environment conducive to that? And if not, what are my choices? Because sometimes
Yes.
what comes down to is what I need is a paycheck. And that's actually the most important thing to my family. And then it's that give of, okay, well, then what I'm getting from this job is that paycheck and security, if that's what's most important to you. And what I'm not getting is that flexibility. But I'm willing to make that choice and stay here. And I think it's about being intentional with those trade offs as opposed to feeling like things are happening to you. And that's a mindset shift. It's subtle, but it's really powerful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And at the end of the day, all of these things effectively you do kind of have to take a basket. Like sometimes I like to think it's like it doesn't necessarily check all the boxes, but any individual choice might not check every single box that you have. And ultimately it's about like what's the overall package? What's the overall basket that sort of best solves for what is actually important to you that you ultimately want to decide and have agency and intentionality around, so you feel that sense of like you're driving your own life. But
Yeah.
what
So
about for you,
speaking of
Jess?
which, oh,
Yep. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I would love to hear about your kind of going through this decision too, and especially around your decision, how you came to it around whether or not to have kids, given everything you said earlier.
Yeah. So for a while, it wasn't even on my radar because I was very clear that I did not want to be the default parent. And as a woman, I was going to be the default parent unless I had a partner who was a true equal and not a traditional gender roles relationship. And I came from a family that had very traditional gender roles, right, in terms of who went to work and who stayed home and what those responsibilities were. And I did not want that. I did not want the pressure of having to go work the way that I was working and then come home and be primarily responsible for taking care of kids. I was like, I don't want that. F that. I'm just not going to do that. And so it wasn't until I met my partner that I was like, "Oh, like, this is actually someone where they might actually share that responsibility." And so it doesn't feel like the default is it will end up on me. So that was, I think, shift number 1 is, as cheesy as that sounds, is finding the right partner. It wasn't until I met that person that this whole possibility even became a thought in my mind. And then what also happened in that time period was I made that shift out of corporate and startup land into my own business where I had immense flexibility. And now in this position, I saw what I really wanted was that flexibility. I didn't want that pressure of being in this environment where there are rules to follow and feeling like I had to break the rules or stretch the rules or hide that I was stretching the rules. Things that I agree that you need to do, but I didn't want to deal with that pressure anymore. And so once I started running my own business and I had this partner that made me feel like we could have equal responsibility, all of a sudden it became, oh, I see a possibility where I could have a kid and be able to pick up my kid from school and not have to like feel bad about it. I could just go do it. And that's what I really wanted, was to just be able to do what I needed to do and take care of my business without anyone questioning me. And this is when it all of a sudden felt possible. And I think the way I would have had to have done it in corporate was I would have maybe had to rely more on a nanny, which is totally fine as well. And that's great. And that's why they're there in their support systems. But I just wasn't used to that model because I just didn't have it as a mental model growing up, at least in a positive way. And so I really wanted a little bit more hands-on, using more dropping the kid at daycare, picking them up from daycare. And then even when I was working, I thought about working. I work from home in the office, which is also my baby's room because we live in New York City and to get more than 2 bedrooms is very difficult. So I thought about, if I'm here working, I do not want the baby 3 feet from me in the other room. It's not like we're in a big house in the suburbs where the kid could be on a different floor. You're upstairs working in an office upstairs and the kid is downstairs with the nanny. This is like they're really right there. I was like, I don't want the baby here. I want the baby out of the house if I'm going to be working. And so for me, that was going the daycare route, and that just works for me. And I really like routine and schedule. That was something I realized when the baby first came, those first couple of weeks where there was no routine and schedule. And that was so difficult for me. I really, really need routine and schedule to just anchor me. And this made the most sense. So it was a couple of things that started to change, I think, in my life that made it possible for me to see a future where all of a sudden the idea of kids was, I was open to it. And then for now, we just want one kid. I don't want to do this again. As fun as I'm having.
It is also great. Well, it's
Yeah.
so I mean, I think what you said about the partner element definitely resonated because it's one of the things that I hugely appreciate about my husband is that he has been an extremely equal and engaged participant and active player in everything that we do as parents. And it's obviously one of the things that I love most about him is how enthusiastically he has just really embraced being a dad. And obviously we talked about that a lot as we were dating, and the family orientation was something that was extremely important to both of us. And I saw that evidenced very clearly in how he treated his own family, of course, and also how he integrated with mine. And for us, it was actually having the conversations up front around, that we wanted kids, step one.
Sure.
And then
Well,
two is
it's
how
important to know because some people forget to have that conversation.
yeah, yeah, and, there's plenty out there of, like, don't assume if they tell you that they don't wanna have kids, don't assume that's ever gonna change, like, it's good to be
100%.
comfortable with that
And
when
we
it
didn't have
is.
that conversation, I think, up front. So I think we both got lucky that we sort of landed in a place that was similar. So it is important to have that conversation up front if you know that you want kids.
Yeah, and there's something around, especially by the time both parents are working, um, I think it is one of the keys to making it sustainable is figuring out like what and being very intentional about what is the sort of division of responsibilities, if you will. And I think making sure that in whatever ways, like each of you contributes to the family and the home, that it feels
Beyond one person's just contributing by having a job and the other is
correct.
expected to do everything else. So how did you
Correct.
have those conversations?
You know, part of some of it we had really just aligned on early in terms of like even how we ran our household. The most obvious example for us is cooking. My husband is in the fire department. He's got a very interesting and unique schedule as a shift worker where he's on for 24 hours and then home for 2 to 4 days and then goes back. So I joke it's his work travel is going to the
Yeah.
firehouse. But he cooks and he does a lot at home while I'm out. And we've got help on the home front with a woman who cleans, who's been extremely beneficial to our family. But we had some of these sort of processes or division of labor in place even before kids. And then with kids, it was a little bit the breakdown of like, okay, what actually makes sense here? And by the way, again, this also evolved. There for this season of life right now, my son is on my walk, dropping off my son at his school is on the way for me to the subway for work. So I get him. We found a babysitter who can pick up the kids and bring them home at the end of the day. If a kid is sick or has a doctor's appointment during the day, we schedule those on the days that my husband is off. And so he can take them during the day. So we've sort of figured out all these
Working with
blocks.
what you got and
100%.
changing it as circumstances change. So it's not set in stone and being flexible with
Yeah.
that. Sounds like.
And that I will say too was one of the biggest surprises for me becoming a working mom was just how often the logistics needed to be rearranged. It's like you think
Yes.
you have it. figured out in terms of sleep schedules, naps, feeding times, whatever, and then they drop a nap or they go to a
Oh,
different school or they go
that
from
was the biggest shock
daycare
to me too. It's like I
to
just figured this shit out and now we're changing again. And it is. It's like every 2 to 3 months. And I'm hoping that it's hoping it gets
slows
a little
down.
longer. I hope it slows down a little bit. But you're right. It's you get the routine and then it immediately has to start to shift again. And so it's never set. And so I think just having
Yes.
that strong communication is important to what you're hinting at.
Totally, and I think it's the communication around one, both making sure that things don't just default fall on one person, but that you've sort of
Hmm.
intentionally split, and that you have some kind of regular dialogue or cadence to revisit said split as stuff changes. Because there were times when things needed to change, and it was really just the fact that we had a mechanism to actually have conversations about it that made all of the difference and helped us navigate.
Absolutely. And one of the resources that I found that I recommend to other people today that helps with exactly that is called the fair play method. Have you heard about it?
I have, yeah, I read the book.
Yeah, so Eve has a Rodsky has a book called The Fair Play Method, and then she has the cards, which now my daughter likes to play with by dumping them out and then making mommy clean them up. So the whole
Makes sense.
family is really benefiting from these cards, really. But the cards are really helpful, I think, especially for folks who have a hard time trying to enter into that conversation or they're not comfortable entering to that conversation. I use them myself because we weren't quite sure how to navigate that conversation without somebody getting defensive and thinking that you're saying I'm not doing enough. So it's like, okay, let's just play this game. There's a game that we can play with cards, and the game is who gets the dishes and who's in charge of the trash and who makes the bed, or do we even care to make the bed? I think that was the other piece that I found really helpful from this methodology was asking the question, do we even care about this? And that's important because there's so many things, as you just talked about. The logistics are always changing. Things are always shifting and changing. There's a lot of what we call mental load on us to carry. We don't want to be the only ones, the women, the ones carrying it, but there is a lot. So if you can start to eliminate things and saying, like, we don't care about this, like something, for instance, that I wish I could do, but I've just accepted that I don't, is I wish I was better about like getting people presents for their birthdays or to celebrate different things. And I just can't. So I've just decided, like, I won't be doing that and I won't be guilting myself around that. If I happen to pull it together for something, great. But otherwise, like, I'm just taking it off my list. We just won't be doing that. And that's that.
We've become very big fans of the please no presents to all of our children's birthday parties, and we mean it. Some people still get presents, which is very kind, but
See,
it's
I
a
love
little
getting
bit
presents.
okay. And by the way, this is probably just a me thing. Maybe if others of you out
I
there
love
also
getting presents. I
I
like to give other people presents. I just can't get it together necessarily. So,
no, yeah, and
but that's
I
very
feel
kind
like
of you to take the pressure off others.
I that's what I'm hoping for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Of just
and you know
making
what?
it
It's true too because there's also pressure when I was getting ready for my daughter's first birthday. I was like, okay, well, I need to make a list then of things to tell people to get, and that's a mental load. And
totally.
luckily, again, I can acknowledge my privilege. We're in a privileged place where my daughter has everything that she can need and want. I'm actively buying it for her. Too many things, probably. My husband has made one or two comments about that. I'm always buying things or thinking about buying things for her. So, yeah, like she doesn't need anything for birthdays. So maybe we should just institute that and just be like, just
Okay,
don't
I highly
get
recommend it
something.
because it totally gets out of control by the time they have 15 classmates, and then you're getting a lot of
Stuff
so
that you
much
don't even want or
stuff,
need.
and to your point
Yeah.
earlier
A lot of
about,
things for
like
me to return because I'm very particular about her wardrobe and I will not put her in
totally.
pink for every outfit. Okay. Will not put my
No.
daughter in all pink outfits.
And still, like, how many toys did they we had a very interesting Christmas. It was probably I think Clara was maybe 3 or 4, and
Hmm.
Liam was, like 1.5, 2.5, something like that, and we actually pulled back presents that we put out. Like, they were fatigued on opening stuff, and they just wanted to play with the things, and we kinda looked at each other, we're like, "Should we just hide the rest of the presents?"
Yeah.
And
Give
we
it to them in
did.
like 6 months. Yeah.
No, or a
Yeah.
year later. It was,
Sure. That
we
too.
saved some for birthdays, some for the next Christmas, but it was like and in some ways, I think we've just sort of, as a society, a little bit become a little overly
Oh,
materialistic, and there's
we're
something
such a consumerist society. And I think America
totally.
in particular, I look at the things that we've created and I think about, well, how did we survive without this? I'm like, we survived fine. So, like, we didn't really need this very specific thing or particular thing. We've just been conditioned that, like, I think we get a lot of pressure and guilt as parents that we're not doing enough.
Yes,
So sometimes I think a lot of these toys are, well, if you haven't gotten this particular thing to teach this kid this particular skill, then you're a bad parent. And I
totally.
have to keep
You're a bad
reminding myself, like,
parent.
don't
You're
fall for
behind.
it. Don't fall for it. It's fine. You know, I
Yeah. And by the way, it shows up also in like the extracurricular activities. It's like your kid's not taking swim and soccer and dance classes on the
Mhm.
weekends. And it's like, no, I work all week and I would like to spend time with my
Yeah,
child.
and
It's a
not shuttling
little,
them around. But that goes back to what we
yeah,
talked about, which is, like, you have to have these limits of, like, what is enough. And I think that
yeah,
goes back to the original question we started talking about is, well, what is your idea of success? And I
yeah,
think for a lot of us, we don't know what enough is.
yeah.
And so we think we just need more and more and more. And we have to get to a point where we are clear on what it is that we actually want and need and knowing what is enough.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome point. And I'd be interested for you to like as you thought about what you had to sort of give up or let go of to make room for the things that were actually important to you. Like what were the key sticking points for you? What was hard to let go of?
So I had this moment, it was probably around the COVID time, like 2020, 2021, when I had made the transition into launching my business and working as a coach and, leadership development consultant and running workshops and whatnot. And I was like, I I realized like, this is what I was meant to do. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I love doing this. And every time a client tells me just how meaningful our work was to them, it lights me up in a way that nothing else does. It's the greatest feeling. And I realized in that moment that if I could only help one person, and I just knew I helped one person, that would be 1,000 times more meaningful to me than anything else that I could ever do. And at that moment, I said, okay, well, what would I be willing to give up to hold on to this? And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'd move out of the city. I'd move to upstate New York, to like a small town. I still need to have a house I like, but I'd move to like a podunk, like in middle of nowhere. Like I could do that. I could move to a place that's not, as cool, quote unquote, as Brooklyn or whatever, if I got to keep doing what I'm doing. And that's when I realized, okay, that's what's important to me is being able to do this work because it lights me up. I love the flexibility and autonomy of it. I find it really interesting. It works with my energy. I would end work and my partner would come home. It's like, we do our evening routine and it's like 10 o'clock at night and he's exhausted, and I'm, like, still going like an Energizer bunny, and he's like, "What is wrong with you?" In, like, a nice way, but this is the difference. That's not how my life used to be. I know it used to be, like, sprawl on the couch, like, half alive after work. That's why I watch so much TV. But
The TV
there's
guy.
yes, but there's something about when you're doing something you really like that it actually creates energy. My work creates energy, and that gives me energy that I can put towards other parts of my life. So for me, it was realizing what I was willing to give up and for me, what I wasn't willing to give up. And that's this work. So everything comes down to like, I want to keep this work and this business going. So what do I need to do that? Because doing this business affords me the opportunity to, if something happened with my daughter, I could be the one to be there in a few minutes. And I don't have to check with anyone or I just can pop out and handle it. When she's sick, which sucks, they're sick all the time. I was sick yesterday. It's just never ending. But I have more flexibility sometimes to take off. So I have that flexibility, and that to me is so meaningful. And if we had to move to some place with a lower cost of living because I couldn't afford to keep up with this because the business wasn't quote unquote as successful as some others might say it is, I'd be willing to do that. So if we go back to this definition of success, to me, success is not number dollars in terms of what I'm making with my business. Like the business still needs to make money so that I can afford to keep doing this, but it's not measured by a particular dollar. It's not, I want to grow this business to a $5 million business. It's, I like what I'm doing. I want to keep doing work I like. I want to keep making an impact in people's lives. I want to keep having this autonomy and flexibility so I can show up in other ways and be primary parent at times when I want. And that's success to me. I'm
Awesome.
doing everything that I dream of at this moment. And it's not climbing to the top of the ladder. It's not because I'm CEO of Rework It. It's because I like what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, resonates so much. And I think what really strikes me about what you said too is just the level of clarity, of intentionality, of like of the trades effectively that you're making, and that isolation of this is what really matters to me and my sense of enjoyment and fulfillment. And I am protecting that. And if I need to give on some other pieces of my life to make that happen, then that's fine. Like that's it. I am willing to do that. To me, like, that is where all of the power comes, like, whatever the trait is not. I always feel like whenever certainly in my own life and certainly as I sort of talk to friends and colleagues also, I always feel like the resentment comes from the places where there's this sense of almost obligation of, like, you feel like you're supposed to do
Yeah, or you
something that
have
you
to,
have
but
to,
nobody
you
actually told you
should.
that.
Totally. Yeah, and it's this sense that you're doing it for somebody that's not you, or it's not aligned
Mhm.
with
Or you don't
whatever
have
you're.
autonomy, it feels like you didn't choose it. It's being
Yep.
forced upon you. And
Yeah, and you're
sometimes
not.
that's a mindset, right? The shift, and sometimes it's not calling out the bullshit, right?
Well, and I think that's where all the power is realizing that everything you do is a choice. Whether you act or
Yeah.
not, you speak up or not, you make a change or you don't.
Not
Every
acting is a
single 100%. Everything you do or don't do is a choice, and it's, it is. I think it's imperative on all of us to do so intentionally, to say that this is my life, this is your life, like, we need to live it the way that ultimately, at the end of the day, like, what are you gonna be proud of? Like, what will you be excited for having done? And it's, like, still one of the sort of metrics or barometers that I use most for making my own decisions of, like, if I fast forward 10 years and I'm looking back, like, how am I going to feel about this? Like, what do I wish I would have done regardless of how it turns out? Like, how do I hope I show up in this moment? And I found that to be so helpful of just kind of making some of the bigger decisions to make sure that what I'm doing is something that future me is going to
yeah.
be proud of and
Well,
excited
it's a
about.
powerful reframe. It's giving yourself perspective. The version I use is maybe a little bit more morbid, but it's still very meaningful. So I think about if I died tomorrow, like how would I feel? And obviously I would feel like I wish I had more time because there's still more I want to do. But would I feel like I didn't do anything? Would I feel like, well, I've been waiting to live because I've lost a lot of people in the last few years who never made it to retirement. And if we keep living our life like, okay, even the folks who are part of like this FIRE methodology where it's, they're trying to retire early. So they're trying to like do all this stuff to save every penny now so they can retire early. Retire early is still like 40 or 50. And if you're in your early 30s, like who's to say you'll make it to that? I've lost people in their 30s who never made it to 40. I've lost people who worked hard their entire careers to amass a lot of wealth and they didn't make it to retirement age. And that to me really shook me to my core. And I was already living this before, but it's really just, it continues to reinforce this mindset of if I died tomorrow, obviously, I wish I still had more time, but would I feel like happy with where I am at? Or would I feel like, well, no shit, I haven't even gotten started yet. I've been putting all this off. And I think that's the aha moment that you need.
Well, and especially coming out, like, being ambitious, wanting a career, coming out of a whatever type of school. Sometimes I mean, God, self included, you just it's so easy to get so fixated on the milestones of, like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be happy when I hit this, when I get this job, when I get into this
Yes.
school, when I get this promo, whatever. And, like, all of those moments are so fleeting. Like, you don't
Yeah.
live that, and then, by the way, you get there and you're already looking at the next one. So there's this that
That's
like, that's
the
it.
fallacy of it all. Yeah.
And you're on the hamster wheel of, like, always chasing the next thing, the carrot dangling above your head
And
that
that
just is
goes
always.
to like, what is enough? Right?
Yeah.
Because it's okay to have goals and to be chasing something, but you have to be really clear, like, when is enough?
And I think it's like, are you, because at the end of the day, our lives are the journey, not the destination, right? It's like your days, like, literally, what are you doing today, tomorrow, the next day? That is your life. Like, that
Yeah.
those
It's the
are your out.
mundanity or whatever the word is, right? Mundaneness of just the day to day. That you're right. It's a collection of
That's your
small
life.
little moments. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's something about, I mean, to me, especially, everybody always says this, but the whole years are long, but the days are fat, or sorry, days are long,
Yes.
fast.
Yes.
I thought it was very interesting with kids because when we had babies, nothing about the days felt like everything about the days, sorry, hold on, let me re-say that. When we had babies, obviously the days felt super long, but
Mhm.
also candidly, the years did not feel fast. Like the years felt slow at the beginning. And then there was something that happened around ages 2 or 3 where all of a sudden it was just like the gas, we just totally stepped on the gas. And everything now goes so fast. And honestly, the days feel fast and the years feel fast.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been really important for us is like, how do we just stop and create these moments of stillness, even when everything is moving a mile a minute, and make sure that we are frequently, regularly stopping to smell the roses and appreciate all the things that we're grateful for and for the moments that we're in, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Cause like all of it goes fast.
And but yeah, I think there's like a healthy balance between living in the now and planning for the future. Because what I
Yeah.
also find though is that if I don't have an intention of what it is I want to do, will get done. And I had this realization, to speak to how the kids just grow so fast and the years go by so fast. It's like, okay, this summer is the only summer, the first and last summer when my child will be this age. Like, you think about it like that, and it's like, "Okay, I only get it once." So, if that's the case, is there anything in particular that I wanna do with my child when they're this age in the summer? And I'm trying to think about, like, setting some intention because I see this too with folks all the time, and this gets in the way of us being able to find rest and balance as well, is when people do get their day off or people do get a couple hours to themselves, if they don't have any clue of how they wanna use that time, the time disappears, right?
So fast.
So fast because you spend it doing something not worth your time, right? Whether you're swiping on social media or you're like end up doing some chores that you didn't mean to do or whatever the case may be. Like your time and your fun time is very fleeting if you aren't intentional about it. So I always try and have like some sort of plan. I like to call it freedom in a framework. I'd like to do this thing. I don't care when I do it. Like that's all flexible and everything else around it. But like I want to get this thing done. I want to take her to the zoo. I want us to go to the beach, right? Just what are those couple of milestones that you want to do that are something to look forward to? Don't make it so stressful, right? That you lose out on missing the moments. You're like, it has to be the perfect beach day because it's not. The kids are going to go screaming. They're not going to take their nap. Something's going to happen.
And they're gonna
You got to be
complain. They
flexible.
stand in their underwear.
Yeah, 100%. But it's like finding this balance between have goals because
Yeah.
I sometimes I feel like people misunderstand that I'm like anti-ambition now. And I'm like, no, have goals, but also understand what enough is enough. What is enough for you? Have intention of why you want to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And then yeah, to your point, like and just enjoy you have to enjoy the now as well. Because if you get hit tomorrow by that bus, doesn't matter what you were planning to do.
Yeah, and I think what you said about the intentionality is so important here too, because that's to me like the having the broader sense of goals and directions gives you a framework to think about like how do your days want to look, and it's that question of like what do you want to protect and what do you need to make time and space for, because it's one of those where again, especially becoming a working mom, I mean, it's just unbelievable the number of asks you get for your time. It's just
I'm always trying
everywhere,
to buy I always have to buy something. I always gotta buy to give a pick new clothes, to get this new thing. I'm always got a list of, like, things I have to go do and execute and take care of. Like, there's always something.
and
That
it's
can't
the
be the only thing that I do with my time.
yeah, and it's the classic important urgent framework
Mhm.
of it can be so easy to just have all of the hours you have left consumed by stuff that is not important, but is kind of urgent. And I
Or
think
fake urgent.
partly
There's fake urgency to that as well a lot of
yes.
times.
Yeah, and it's whether, however imposed. And so there has to be this orientation around like where are you going? Cuz ultimately I think a big measure of actually enjoying the day to day, enjoying the struggle, it gets back to something you said earlier, Jess, is you feel like what you're doing, like the work that you're putting in on whatever it is that you're pursuing is moving you in the direction that you want to be in. There's
Mhm.
something about like, I know what I'm building. I'm excited about what I'm creating, whether that's in your job, your side hustle, your creative thing, like whatever it is, because those are the things that light you up. And you can tell, you could always tell if somebody's got that because because I think it generates this insatiable amount of energy to pursue whatever that is. It's like it's about so much more than you at that point. It's like the mission. And
Yeah.
I think like getting in touch with that sense of like what you ultimately want to be putting your professional creative energies towards, or even your maternal home energies towards, is actually what makes handling a lot of these things so sustainable. Like you feel like it's all worth it.
100%. I think we need to have something to look forward to. Just like we need hope in life, like we need things that are going to pull us forward. But I know that I can sometimes be too forward focused on the future that I forget to focus on the present. And that's
Yeah.
the intention that I'm setting and been working on with myself, is to find that balance between both. And that might be a good way for us to sort of wrap up our conversation today, is maybe sharing and reflecting with each other, like what is something that we're looking forward to that we want to be intentional about, and then what's something that we're trying to enjoy and appreciate in the now.
Well, I love that question. Something that I am looking forward to. So I have one thing for me clearly right now is I have gotten to take a few months off in between two jobs, and I recognize what an enormous gift it is to have this amount of time to spend with my family on my own pursuits, taking singing lessons again, which has been absolutely
That's
amazing.
fantastic.
It's been so fun. I love it. But it's been this opportunity to just stop and reflect on like what do I wish I had more time for? And I am in the middle of it, so it's both appreciating it now but also really looking forward to especially the next couple weeks where we've got some good travel plans that I'm really excited about. I'm also really excited about walking in to a new role in a new company where I have an opportunity to to really be intentional about the type of leader that I want to be, the tone that I want to set with this new team. And I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited about that. And the thing that I'm looking forward to just making sure that I appreciate in the moment and really being mindful of now is honestly one of the things I say to parents all the time is just to riff on the earlier comment. Every single stage is fleeting, you know, and everyone has relevant pros and cons. And I feel like people tend to have like a phase of life for their kids that they're most enthusiastic about. But in their own ways, like each is beautiful and each is horrible.
Yes, spoken like a
And
true parent.
we're
They're an
in
angel
what
and
was
a monster.
yeah, exactly. And we're in this moment of like our kids are now our son's almost 5, our daughter's gonna be 7 over the summer. And man, these were the ages I always looked forward to most, and man, are they delivering. Like, they're just so cute, it's been so fun, and so there's a little bit of, like, I know this stage won't last for forever, and the next one will come, and that will have things that are wonderful about it and things that are annoying about it too, but how do you just, like, soak it all up in the meantime and just enjoy where we're at? What about
Yeah,
you?
that really resonates with me too, because right now we're intending just to have the one kid, and so every moment is the first and the last for us, and so I'm really trying to just stay present and enjoy it. And she's at this delicious age now that I'm really enjoying, and it's so cute, and I'm really looking forward to the future as well. But if I bring it back down away from the like future planning, just to just like short term planning, things that I'm looking forward to, we're having a big trip. We're going to spend actually. This I'm actually really proud of myself for, because I always had this vision of, okay, if I work for myself and I have all this autonomy, how cool it would be to like be bi-coastal. We have a lot of family and friends in California and various parts of Southern California. And I'd love to, have a place out there and work out there part time and then come to New York. And I had this opportunity to work that was bringing me to California. And it's a big work opportunity as well, so I'm also excited about that. And I was like, maybe we should just do that. Maybe we should just go out for a month and spend a month out there. And we can work part-time and we can take time off to spend that time with friends and family. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that and not making up some excuse why we couldn't do that, and not letting my husband make up excuses and like why he couldn't ask work for that, and just saying like, no, ask it. If they say no, we'll deal with that. But like, don't think they're going to say no before we ask, and don't give them a reason to say no. To your point, like, don't really ask for permission. Just say, I'm doing this. Any
And don't
questions?
negotiate against yourself, at least ask the
Correct.
question.
100%. And that was a big thing that we talked about. Like, please don't negotiate against yourself. And I'm really looking forward to that experience and seeing like, is this something that we thought would be fun is actually like not as fun. It's actually more stressful than the enjoyment is. But I'm just proud that I did it and not pushed it off. And it was
Good for
using that
you.
mindset again of like, okay, like if I never get to retirement, like what am I pushing this off for? So that I'm looking forward to. And then I just want to have like smaller moments when we come back to New York for the summer. I'm like, "Why don't we be outside a little bit more with my kid and just appreciate it?" Because this winter was so brutal, and I just feel like I want her to just be out in the fresh air. I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid. Just wanted her to have as much of that as possible. So just yeah, even if we just go to the park, the local park, just doing that and appreciating that and being together. And I try and find joyful moments in and even the small things that we do. And that makes me the fun parent, and I appreciate that.
Yes. So good, and you guys are gonna have an amazing time. It'll be so neat. We'll be excited to hear
Thank
how it
you.
goes.
I will report back to folks and let you know if this was a disaster or if this was really fun. But I'm looking forward to it. I can have fun in anything. It's a mindset thing. So
I think
it'll
that's
be great.
absolutely right. Yeah, and obviously a little disruptive, but you'll settle in and it will be really nice.
You just create some version of a routine. Don't worry, I'm working on creating the schedule to share with the grandparents so everyone can stay on the schedule.
Yeah, make sure it's
Freedom in the
specific.
framework, but there's a framework, you know. It'll be like these 2 hours you can do whatever you want, but during this hour we're gonna do this, and then you can have this hour you can do whatever you want, and then we're gonna do this, and there's
Like,
beauty in that. Yeah.
you need a plan.
You need a plan. You gotta start from something. So that's the plan, and that's what we're gonna do, and we'll see how it comes together. But I appreciate
Amazing,
that we just started this conversation. There's so much more that we can talk about when it comes to defining success for yourself and what that looks like. But at least we kicked that off today and started describing it.
amazing. Look forward to continuing the conversation, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.